But if you don't like the microphone quality, get good and get used to it, because that is what I did. What is happening, YouTube? Welcome back, and today we have a video looking at the top 5 incantations that I enjoyed the most in the Elden Ring DLC. And if you have any doubts about any of these incantations on my list, rest assured, I am indeed a professional. I lost 9 million runes while trying to record this part of the episode, and it made me change my mind on my number 1 spot. Alright, and first up on the list we have Fire Serpent. This is one of the Mesmer fire incantations. You get this in a place in the DLC that I will not spoil. So this little guy, while not doing a crap ton of damage, it has very aggressive tracking. And it doesn't do the most damage, but I am sure for those of you who like mounted combat, especially as casters, we as casters don't necessarily have the best options on horseback. So with this little fire thingy, I'm gonna get killed. With this little fire orb, we can indeed have some successful mounted combat. Now, the tracking on this thing is insane. It does take a while to come out, so it is not the fastest incantation, and it is not the hardest hitting, but because of its ease of use, you can literally just lock onto something, spam the spell, and have quite an easy run at things, except when you have fire resistant dogs. Oh no. Oh my goodness, I should have pulled out a weapon. There we go. Cool. So, like I said, not the hardest hitting incantation, but it is very easy to use. And I'm sure with the right setup, right build, you can get some decent damage out of this with, say, the Fire Knight Seal, which boosts the Mesmer incantations, as well as a few of the armor sets that can increase the damage on this one. But it is a very unique incantation, very easy to use. So definitely up there in my top 5. So with all that being said, let's move on to the next one. Alright, and up at number 4 we have, what's this thing called? Bell's Flame Lightning on deck. Now this incantation is actually a dragon incantation. So this thing hits like a freaking truck. Problem is, you have to be quite close to your enemy, and you are vulnerable. You do get very decent hyper armor, but you cannot. Oh, I'm gonna die. You cannot really activate it in the air like you can the other incantations. So that's a bit of a downside. And it is slightly difficult to aim this thing, but it hits like an absolute truck. This thing does insane amounts of damage. It does it very satisfying. But keep in mind, I am using the arcane dragon communion seal, so my dragon incantations will hit harder. But still, this thing it does very well. It does very well in a base game because it does fire and lightning damage, and it does physical damage. So definitely not a bad incantation by any means necessary. And like I said, in the base game, this thing can still dish out some serious punishment. The only downside I think I can mention, other than you cannot activate it while in the air, is, I did mention, you are vulnerable to attacks. So enemies can hit you very easily, but like I said, you also get quite a bit of hyper armor with it, so it could have been worse. It could have been much worse. So with all that being said, that is the incantation up at number 4, which I really like. You do get another one of Bale's incantations, but that one pales in comparison in my opinion. So yeah, let's head up to the next one. Alright, and up in the top 3 we have the multi-layered rings of light kicking us off. So this is basically a holy frisbee. This thing is insane. It obviously is up at 3rd place because it being holy damage, you do not really get that much use out of it in the base game's end game, but not every single enemy in Elden Ring is resistant to Holy. It's only the end game bosses, mostly. So this thing will perform very well in majority of the game. It has insane range for the type of spell that it is. It has very, very respectable range and very respectable damage. Its initial strike. What is happening with my English? I'm running out of minutes on my English language. But anyway, you chuck it out. It hits for about 2000 damage. Keep in mind this is with the fully upgraded Skardu Blessing or Shadow Blessing. But still, it can really build up, and it stacks with the consecutive attacks talismans. So if you can really push the damage on this specific incantation. And like I said, the only reason it is not up at number or up higher on the list is because it falls off against endgame bosses. But other than that, this is an S tier incantation in my humble opinion, which is very close to objective fact. I'm just joking. But this is a very good incantation. Do not sleep on it. You will not be disappointed in the slightest. So, let's head up into the number 2 spot. Alright, and kicking us off with number 2 is the Pthread Spears. Now, I never got the one in the base game, but this is one that I picked up in the DLC. So I might actually be mistaken that it is not one of the DLC's incantations. But I'm pretty sure I picked this one up here because the other one did not look like that. But this thing absolutely snipes. I mean, just look at the... Oh no, it doesn't snipe as well. But what I mean by it snipes is it hits very hard. Look at the damage. 3600. Upwards of 3600, I should say. This thing nukes bigger targets. It absolutely chows through the health bar. The only thing that I would say is a bit of a concern is it is HP hungry, but for the amount of damage you do on a single cast, it more than makes up for the amount of HP that it costs. It is a very, very fun incantation, and like I said, I can't think of any downsides of this incantation. I'm not sure of the type of damage it does. I think it does physical damage, but I'm not 100% on that. All I know is this thing absolutely smacks. Look at that, 3600 upwards. Very, very nice incantation. And it comes from one of the most annoying enemies in the game. Well, I don't think it comes from one of them, but they do use it in the DLC, and you can definitely feel the difference between the upgraded version and the DLC's version. And I might die over here. So, with all that being said, I refuse to die on camera again when doing a review video. So, with all that being said, we will continue on with number 1. I lost 9 million runes while trying to record this part of the episode, and it made me change my mind on my number 1 spot. This was going to be a tie, but I took out the other one, which will now only get an honorable mention. But up at number 1, we have Knight's Lightning Spear. The only drawback of this incantation is the fact that it is so freaking FP hungry. But this thing hits like an absolute truck. You want one lightning spear? Never mind. I have more than 6 more. Now, you can charge up this thing to throw out 5 lightning spears, or, like I said, charge it up and then you get 2 extra. This thing hits very, very hard, and if you catch an enemy in water, trust me when I tell you, it will wreck their health bar very, very, very quickly. Which is very satisfying as well. I remember when I faced off against the Death Knight for the first time, and he chucked this spear at me. I immediately knew that I wanted this incantation. And I was not sure if I was going to get it, and I only got it on my second playthrough. So I played my entire first playthrough plagued with the knowledge that this incantation exists. But once I got my hand on it, it pretty much never left any one of my faith builds. This thing is very reliable. It travels just as far as your regular lightning spear, but it hits much harder than the regular lightning spear by a long shot. And like I said, its only drawback is the fact that it is so FP hungry. This thing costs a hell of a lot of FP to pull off, and they buffed. So I'm not going to try and fight all of them while they are buffed, but this Night Lightning Spear, definitely not an incantation you should sleep on, and if you are scared you might lose it, I highly recommend looking up a guide on where to find it. Truth be told, I cannot really remember, but it is just that good. So do not sleep on this. It is probably the best incantation in the entire game. And now it's up to the honorable mention, who unfortunately lost his spot in a tie for the first place, and that's simply because I lost 9 million runes. But we have Mesmer's Orb as an honorable mention. This thing hits like an absolute truck. Now, keep in mind, this doggo is resistant to fire, as he has repeatedly shown. But also, what mainly caused me to take this one out of my first place spot in a tie with the Night Lightning Spear is the fact that you have absolutely no hyper armor when using this incantation. There is nothing stopping you from being whacked out of it. Now, if you do get a bit of elevation, like I just did there, this thing performs like a dream. Once you hit the ground, you effectively stagger an enemy, and you basically don't give them a chance to hit you out of that. Look at what if you connect with the ground, it's over. They will die. Well, for the most part, they will die. But the fact that you have absolutely no hyper armor makes this thing tricky to pull off. And against larger targets in a boss arena, this will not be very ideal. So it is a very cool incantation, very anime. If you like your anime, it is a very, very cool animation. It is a very hard-hitting incantation, but it is tricky to pull off, which ultimately made it lose its tie with Night Lightning Spear. So that is my incantations top 5 tier list. Hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Next up is sorceries, and after that we will be tackling hybrid weapons. So more coming your way very soon. Thank you for watching. May God bless you all. Consider leaving a like and subscribing. And yeah, bye bye.